Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Brendan and welcome back to the channel. And just after the very important Ethereum merge, we are seeing an extremely large squeeze on Ethereum. But what does this mean? Well, when we have a support level that is rising into resistance and a resistance level that is falling into support, what we have is essentially pressure from both sides converging on one another. Think of this as a balloon that's being squeezed, or a volcano that has all of the pressure building up to the top of it or the end of it. And that's exactly what we're seeing on Ethereum right now. And so when we have this very large resistance level, we're talking something that started all the way back last spring in April of 2022, converging over the last 6 months and squeezing over the last 6 months to where we are at right now. So with us entering into the final quarter of this, perhaps even the final 10% of this, it does look like we are going to see a very large move coming to Ethereum. And in this video, I want to explain why. So if that does sound interesting at all, make sure you stick around for the entire length of this video, as there will be important information discussed the entire way through. But that being said, you're probably familiar with these. If you've been around on the channel for any amount of time, you know that some of the most interesting videos that we make are when squeezes like this one happen, because these tend to create some really, really large moves. And I know that there's people who watch out for the channel just to see when the next squeeze video is going to come out. And so at last, we can't force these kind of things because they just happen naturally. But we have a really big one happening here on Ethereum, and there's other ones that are happening on the cryptocurrency altcoin charts as well, but I think we're going to save those for Friday's video. Now, as for Ethereum, we can see that if we zoom out here all the way back in April of 2022, we saw the start of this happen, because this is really where we had the initial breakdown on Ethereum after it had a little bit of consolidation and recovery in the first quarter of this year, but ever since then it had just been falling. And so what we can see is that we have multiple rejection points in here. We have one, we have two, we have a third, and then we took a little bit of break from resistance and then started building our support line down here with 1, 2, 3 different touches, went back up the resistance, touched 2 more times, and now we are consistently riding on this support line once again. And so what we have here is we have at least 4 touches of support, a number of touches, 3 to 4 touches of resistance, and this is all converging into this final little quadrant that we have right over here. And so we can see that the last time that Ethereum saw one of these symmetrical triangles or pennants was back in the very, very beginning of this year when we were in that consolidation period. And it looks very, very similar to what we're at right now, where we go and we see resistance converging on support and support converging on resistance, and these are at a kind of like an intersection or a pathway where they are bound to meet, and as they do, pressure is getting tighter and tighter and tighter until ultimately the breakout or the breakdown happens. Now in the last case, it was a really, really nice breakout, because from support up to where it led up to, it was about a 44% increase in Ethereum's price. So if we were to see something with this symmetrical triangle being nearly double the size, I don't think it's off the chart to say that we could at least see a 50% to maybe even a 100% move on Ethereum. And I know what people are saying. Hey, they're saying, hey, that is crazy, but when you really look at it, if we're going to move from support up maybe 100% or something, that would make us very, very, it would make for a very, very textbook move because of where we would land. That would land us at the bottom of our previous consolidation range, and would also land us perhaps just above the 200-day moving average as well. So this would be an ideal place for Ethereum to rise up to should it see a breakout. Now there's also the flip side of this to say, well, what happens if Ethereum breaks downwards? And there's really 2 answers that we have here. Number one, if we break downwards, we could go back to our yearly lows of around $800 to $900. And if we're going to go ahead and look at what we had previously seen in 2018, there's also more support around this $800 area, which we didn't really get to test the first time around, because on the first time around, we only came down to the upper ends of the $800, so just barely below $900. And we can see that from, if we want to get rid of some of these circles on our chart, we can see this from the initial low that we hit, right? We hit just around $880, $890, and after that we saw an immediate recovery. So if we do see a breakdown in price, that could be a retesting of the lows, maybe even a little bit lower, but again, we'll have to wait and see for that. So if we do bounce up to the upside, again, I think that it could be anywhere from a 50 to 100% move. I think it's very likely that we see Ethereum get back up towards $2,000, if not even a little bit higher than that, if we see a breakout from this large pennant, this large squeeze that's happening on Ethereum. And this is something that just everyone needs to be aware of. Again, this is something that we can kind of plan proactively for and say, hey, if the bullish scenario plays out, I can do this. And if the bearish scenario plays out, I can do this. And so we can create a number of strategies. And depending on how Ethereum moves here, we can plan accordingly and use those strategies that we have already planned. Another big player, I've already kind of mentioned this one, but this 200-day moving average is going to be a big one for Ethereum. It really hasn't tested this level too directly since all the way back in April when we were talking about this top happening. So this could be one of those places that we say, hey, look out for another top on Ethereum around the 200-day moving average, or potentially just watch it to be used as resistance, because we had already seen it be used as resistance right after the initial break of the 200 back in January, and then again back in the beginning of April when we rejected it a second time. So just something to watch out for on your chart as well. If we're looking at Ethereum from the volume, it's no mistake that volume has been pretty steadily falling off here over the course of the last couple of weeks. I'd say really since the end of December, volume has been pretty steadily falling off on Ethereum, which isn't the worst thing at the end of the day, but it does also kind of coincide with the fact that we are in a squeeze, and as a squeeze enters into the last leg of its life, we're going to see volume fall off coming up to the point of the breakout, and then we're going to see a really sudden impact of volume come back into the market. Our RSI, or our relative strength index, coming from that oversold territory, still forming lower swing highs. And what I mean by that is we came up into an oversold territory right up here around 74, lower swing high in our no man's land or our median zone. And we are still kind of sitting in a really lukewarm territory. We're not oversold, we're not overbought, we're kind of just in the middle right now in that no man's land. Not an ideal place for us to be. But again, it's one of those things that really doesn't mean anything either way. On the MACD, ever so slightly having bearish divergence, but it's extremely small, just from some of the lower swing highs that we're seeing. And if we were to zoom out to the weekly chart, we are coming up from this oversold territory. So we are coming up from a really, really low point that Ethereum historically likes to bottom at, meaning that when Ethereum on the weekly chart historically has gotten around this oversold territory, it's bottomed, because it bottomed in 2016, it bottomed in 2018, and this is where it could very likely bottom in 2022 as well. This is one of those points where Ethereum historically bottoms at. Just like when it gets up towards the upper echelons of the overbought territory, it likes to top out here, and it likes to top out here, and here, and here, and here. And so there is a rhyme and a rhythm to this. And this just looks like one of those spots where Ethereum tends to top, as we can see up in here, and it tends to bottom up in here on our weekly RSI. So just another one of those things to pay attention to, especially if we are potentially entering into a really big squeeze. And the last thing that I want to highlight here is the potential idea of Ethereum forming a higher swing low from this weekly MACD. And if this happens, what we would have is a third higher swing low on a weekly timescale, which I don't know if we've really ever seen, maybe besides the fact of the 2018 and 2019 bottoms. But this is a really, really rare occasion for Ethereum, and it could be setting up triple weekly bullish divergence, which would be massive. So if you want to stay in the loop on all of this, make sure you not only follow the channel, but check out the link in the description down below for Crypt Nation as well, as we do give weekly market updates in there. We talk about Bitcoin, we talk about altcoins, and if you're a VIP, you even get a weekly live stream where you get to interact with us and ask us questions. So we're going to be keeping everyone posted over there. Again, I'm one of the analysts over there, and I love what I do. So if you want to check that out, check out the link in the description down below. One little piece of news before we depart here, because I know some people really love to join the channel just to kind of check out what's happening in the news. And MasterCard is pushing deeper into crypto with their new tool for combating fraud. And what I really see this as is a way for MasterCard to double down on their push into cryptocurrency. And what we've seen in the past couple of weeks is large companies, smart money, institutional money coming back into the market like we haven't seen. There's a little bit of a break here while things were up in the air and very, very bearish, that companies weren't getting as involved with cryptocurrency as they had been last year and even in the first quarter of this year. But what I've noticed in recent weeks is that we've started seeing Starbucks and Warner Music Group and MasterCard and BlackRock and all these big names coming back into the crypto market and doubling down on their stance on it. To put it plainly, if MasterCard didn't see this as a long-term play, if they didn't view this as something that was very profitable, they wouldn't be doing it. I mean, this entire company is centered around money and money transfers and making money. That's the entire point of MasterCard. They're not Starbucks where their whole point is to sell coffee. BlackRock and MasterCard, their entire business model centers around money. And if something doesn't look like it is monetarily beneficial, then they're not going to get involved with it, and they're certainly not going to double down with it and put their reputation on the line, because that would be really damaging. And so what we're seeing is that MasterCard's doubling down, BlackRock's doubling down, all these big companies are doubling down now, and they're starting to get really comfortable to coming back into crypto. So that's just my 2 cents here. It's a really cool thing to see MasterCard kind of taking these steps. I think everyone can agree in crypto that we want less fraud, less hacks, less things of that nature. So I'm not necessarily against this one. But if you did enjoy the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Again, we make content just like this one every single week, multiple times a week. So if you want to stay up to date, this is the best place to do it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you in Friday's video.